I still can't believe I'm typing it. I'm a 29-year-old guy from Michigan, and I was supposed to get married last summer. Let's call my now ex-fiancée Cassie. Cassie and I had been together for 5 years, dating through college, surviving the hell of adulting together, and surviving the peak of our 20s like some kind of chaotic rom-com. Our relationship was never perfect. We fought, constantly. About money, about her obsession with social media, about my inability to plan ahead, which, honestly, was probably true about whether we should get a dog before marriage. But somehow, despite all that, I thought I knew her better than anyone. I thought she was ready. I thought I was ready. Fast forward to the day of the wedding. Everything was insane. We'd spent months planning it, 10 bridesmaids, 9 groomsmen, open bar, the works. The venue was a gorgeous lakeside lodge, with white draping and twinkling fairy lights that made it feel like a Pinterest board exploded in real life. Guests were arriving in droves, some clearly hungover from bachelor and bachelorette parties the night before. My mom was sweating bullets trying to fix a crooked boutonniere on my suit, and my best friend had already spilled something on the carpet. The air smelled like flowers and champagne, and my nerves were stretched so thin I could feel them vibrating in my chest. Cassie seemed off. Not nervous off, not cute jittery off. Weird off. She was texting nonstop, disappearing behind the bridal suite door every 10 minutes, taking calls I wasn't supposed to hear. At first, I chalked it up to pre-wedding stress. I mean, I'd stress too, pacing in the groom's lounge, questioning every life choice that led me here. But then I noticed the little things, her bridesmaids whispering behind their hands, the way she kept looking out the window like she was plotting her own escape, the fact that she hadn't touched her champagne glass once despite everyone else sipping and giggling around her. By the time the processional music started, my stomach was doing flips I didn't know were physically possible. The doors opened, and there she was, Cassie, in this dress that weighed a ton but somehow floated around her like she was walking on air. She smiled at me, a big, perfect smile, and I swear my chest almost exploded with relief and happiness. I was thinking, okay, this is it. She's here. She's mine. We're doing this. Then I noticed it, her eyes. Something in them that didn't match the smile. Panic, maybe, or fear, or guilt? I don't know. But it was subtle, a flicker, a hesitation that only someone who had spent years studying her face could notice. My stomach dropped a little. The officiant started talking about love, commitment, vows, and all that cheesy stuff that normally would have made me smile and roll my eyes at the same time, but I couldn't focus. Because every few seconds, I'd catch Cassie shifting, checking her phone again, glancing at the back doors of the lodge, like she was timing something. And then, oh God, she shifted again and something clicked in my brain. The way she was moving, the way she was breathing, it was off. Way off. I kept telling myself to chill, that I was imagining things. I mean, she'd made it all the way down the aisle. Surely she was just nervous. Surely she wasn't about to. And then it happened. Right when she was supposed to say, "I do," she froze mid-step, right there in front of all our families, guests, and the photographer who was snapping a million shots. Her hands clenched the bouquet so tightly I thought the stems would snap. And then, without a word, without a warning, she bolted. Straight out of the building. Like a scene out of some romantic disaster movie, she ran past the altar, past the guests who were screaming and pointing, past my jaw literally hitting the floor, and slammed out the back door. I remember someone yelling, "Stop her!" and the officiant just standing there frozen, mid-sentence, like the wedding itself had imploded in slow motion. I sprinted after her, and that's when the chaos really hit, guests shouting, photographers following, my best man trying to block her from the parking lot, and me just running, trying to catch up, screaming her name like a lunatic. And that's when I realized that no amount of wedding planning, no amount of love, no amount of shared history could have prepared me for this exact, insane, horrifying moment. I caught up just outside the lodge. She was half hiding behind a rental SUV, panting, shaking, mascara running, looking like she was about to vomit or collapse or both. And in that moment, I didn't know whether to yell, cry, beg, or just hold her. I had no idea what the hell was happening. She looked at me, eyes wide, face pale, and whispered something I'll never forget. I can't do this. I'm not ready. I'm sorry. And that's where the entire wedding, and my entire life up to that point, went off the rails. Part 2. I didn't even think. My body just reacted, fueled by pure adrenaline, as my legs carried me after her, heart hammering like it was trying to escape my chest. The guests were spilling out of the lodge doors behind me, half in heels, half in suits, shouting, laughing nervously, or panicking. It was a blur of movement and noise. My best man was screaming something about letting her go, trying to rationalize it, but I couldn't. Let her go. She was my fiancée. The woman I had imagined marrying for 5 years, who I thought I knew better than anyone else, and she was running away from me, from the vows, from the altar, from everything we had planned. I finally caught sight of her at the far end of the parking lot, hunched over the trunk of a rental SUV, hands gripping the edges like she could disappear into it. Her bouquet lay abandoned on the asphalt, petals crushed under the heels of panicked bridesmaids who had followed in pursuit. She looked small, fragile, like a deer caught in headlights, shaking in a way that made me realize something terrifying. She wasn't just scared. She was overwhelmed in a way that I had never imagined possible. My chest was on fire, my lungs screaming, but I forced my voice out. Cassie! Wait! She flinched at my voice and spun around, mascara streaking her pale cheeks, eyes wide and unblinking. I saw panic, raw and desperate, etched across her face. It wasn't just fear, it was terror. And in that instant, I realized that no amount of planning, no amount of love, no amount of shared history had prepared me for this. Evan! I can't! She gasped, shaking her head violently. I'm not ready. I can't do this to you. I can't do this to me. I froze for a second, taking in her words, the trembling of her shoulders, the chaos swirling around us. I could hear the officiant shouting something at the crowd, guests screaming and pointing, and somewhere behind us the photographers were snapping pictures that would probably end up all over social media by the next day. Someone yelled, "Is she eloping?" And my stomach twisted into knots. I took a cautious step closer, hands raised, trying not to spook her further. Do this to you? Cassie, we're supposed to get married today. You're supposed to. My words choked off as I saw her glance at the back road, then down at her feet, then back at me, every motion trembling with panic. The reality hit me like a brick. This wasn't about me, at least not entirely. She was running from the expectations, the spotlight, the perfect wedding image, the pressure of every single pair of eyes on her. She was running from a version of herself that didn't exist yet. Before I could process further, her father came storming up behind me, face red, veins bulging, hands trembling. Cassie! He roared. What the hell are you doing? She whipped around, screaming. Don't! Nobody get close! I'm leaving! And then chaos erupted fully. Bridesmaids were scattered, trying to block her path, some tripping over chairs and flower arrangements. Guests were yelling, phones raised, recording everything. The officiant, frozen mid-sentence, just kept repeating, Wait, wait, wait! As if sheer repetition could undo the moment. My best man grabbed my arm, shouting, Dude, you can't stop her! I tore my arm away. I had to stop her. I had to know what was going on. I sprinted after her, dodging guests who had spilled into the driveway, weaving between cars, tripping over a misplaced chair, heart in my throat, lungs burning. The wind from the lake whipped against my face, carrying the mix of summer air and panic, and I kept yelling her name. My voice was hoarse before I even reached the end of the parking lot. By the time I reached the tree line that edged the road, she had slowed to a walk, exhausted, shivering, mascara running rivers down her cheeks. She leaned against the SUV, panting, hands gripping the hood like she could disappear into the metal itself. I stopped a few feet away, hands open, voice shaking. Cassie, look at me. Please. Just talk to me. She blinked at me, terrified, trembling, and finally whispered, "I thought I was ready. I thought I wanted this." But standing there, at the altar, seeing everyone's faces, feeling the weight of their expectations, I can't. Her words hit me like a physical blow. I wanted to shake her, beg her, plead, even curse, but I realized that the raw honesty of her fear, terrifying and heartbreaking as it was, needed space. Whatever this was, it wasn't just cold feet. It was a complete breakdown of the identity she thought she was supposed to have, a collision of the life she imagined versus the life she was actually living. Somewhere behind us, the guests' murmurs escalated into whispers, then shouts, then chaos again. Her father was still fuming, arguing with the wedding coordinator, while bridesmaids hovered awkwardly, unsure whether to intervene or just retreat. The officiant, finally regaining some composure, was trying to call for calm, but the sound of her trembling voice overpowered everything else. And then it happened, the moment I'll never forget. She fell into my arms. Not with relief, not with joy, but with utter exhaustion and panic. Her whole body shook, racked with sobs that tore through the summer air. I held her, careful not to squeeze too tightly, careful not to let her think I was trying to trap her. In that moment, standing amid the wreckage of the wedding we had spent months planning, I realized the terrifying truth: this wasn't just a runaway bride scenario. This was the unfiltered collapse of a person under pressure, the raw exposure of a life that had been carefully staged for months, maybe years, and could not withstand reality. I didn't know what would happen next. I didn't know if this was the end of us or the beginning of something I wasn't ready to understand. All I knew was that I had caught her on the edge of a decision that would change everything, and I didn't know if I could save her, save us, or even survive the spectacle that had erupted around us. Part 3. We stood there for what felt like an eternity, her shaking in my arms while the chaos of the wedding swirled around us like a storm. Guests were murmuring, some snapping photos, some whispering to each other, and I swear I could hear the officiant muttering under his breath, like the entire universe had gone sideways in the span of a single heartbeat. My chest ached, not just from running and screaming her name, but from the raw intensity of seeing the person I loved unravel in front of me, right there on the driveway with the rental SUV behind her and the lake glinting in the distance. I can't do this," she said again, her voice barely above a whisper. "All of this, it's too much. The dress, the ceremony, everyone watching, it's not me, Evan. It's never been me." I felt a strange mix of relief and panic. Relief that she was still talking, still breathing, still here, but panic because I realized how little I actually understood about what she was going through. 5 years of dating, all those inside jokes, all the late-night conversations, I thought I knew her, but clearly, I had no idea what fear looked like behind that perfect smile. "Okay," I said slowly, my voice steadying as I tried to think. "Then we stop. Right now. We don't have to do this today. We don't have to do it ever if that's what you need. Just tell me what you want." She looked up at me, tears streaking her face, mascara smudged, hair falling across her cheeks. I don't know. I thought I wanted this. I thought I was ready. But when I saw everyone staring, waiting for me to say my vows, it all collapsed. I don't feel like me. I don't even know who I'm supposed to be." Her honesty hit me like a punch in the gut. This wasn't just cold feet. This was her entire identity breaking under pressure. And suddenly, the whole wedding, the flowers, the venue, the 100-odd guests, the photographer, the open bar, felt like a prison built out of expectations. Behind us, the chaos hadn't stopped. Her father was pacing, muttering, his face red with a mix of anger and fear, trying to figure out how to regain control. Bridesmaids hovered, whispering to each other, one of them filming on her phone, probably thinking it was all content for TikTok. Somewhere, the officiant cleared his throat, but no one was listening. I held her tighter, careful not to scare her, and said, "Cassie, it's okay. You don't have to do any of this. We can figure it out. I don't want you to get married today if this isn't what you want. Ever. Just breathe. She leaned against me, shaking, and I could feel the tension leaving her in small, almost imperceptible waves. Finally, after what felt like hours but was probably only minutes, she whispered, "I'm scared, Evan. I've never felt this scared in my life." "Then we stop," I said firmly. "No more pretending, no more pressure. You don't owe anyone this wedding, and you don't owe me the ceremony. You just owe yourself the chance to figure out who you are." For the first time that day, she exhaled fully, as if letting go of a weight she didn't even realize she had been carrying. I realized then that this runaway moment wasn't about rejection. It wasn't about me failing her or her failing me. It was about honesty, raw and unfiltered, and the courage it took for her to admit that what everyone else expected wasn't what she needed. Eventually, we walked back to the lodge together, slowly, cautiously, ignoring the whispers and the stares. Guests parted as we approached, some confused, some angry, some clearly fascinated. Her father was still furious, but I could see the tension in his shoulders soften slightly when he realized she wasn't leaving the property entirely, just leaving the wedding behind. That night, nothing got fixed. There were no dramatic reconciliations, no triumphant speeches, no Instagram-worthy moments. But in the quiet, sitting in a hotel room near the venue, Cassie and I finally talked like adults, like humans stripped of performance and expectation. We talked about fear, about identity, about what it really means to commit to someone, and about how easy it is to get lost in the fantasy of a perfect wedding without seeing what's really happening inside your own heart. And I realized something terrifying. Sometimes, the most chaotic, horrifying moments reveal the truth faster than any carefully planned ceremony ever could. The runaway bride moment wasn't the end. It was the beginning of seeing who we really were, what we actually wanted, and what we could never force into a day on a calendar. Part 4. The days after the wedding disaster were surreal. Completely unreal, like I had walked through some alternate version of my life that only existed in nightmares or viral TikTok videos. News of what happened spread faster than I ever imagined possible, partly because one of the bridesmaids had filmed a clip of Cassie bolting, the video getting shared with the wedding photographer, and of course, social media. By the next morning, there were texts, emails, and DMs from distant relatives, coworkers, and strangers congratulating her for being brave, or asking if I was okay, as if my entire dignity had been auctioned off on some bizarre reality show. Her family, predictably, exploded. Her father called me 3 times in an hour, alternating between yelling and pleading. "How could you let this happen?" he demanded at one point, even though I hadn't let anything happen. I was just standing there, heart in my throat, watching my fiancée disappear. "She's my daughter! You ruined her life!" I had to take a step back, because I realized right then that this wasn't just about Cassie running away. It was about everyone projecting their expectations, their anger, their disappointment onto me, like I was supposed to control a human being's entire emotional reality. Meanwhile, my own family and friends were in a mix of shock, disbelief, and utter fascination. My mom cried, mostly for me, telling me over and over that it wasn't my fault, while my best man and groomsmen traded theories on whether Cassie had secretly eloped with someone else, if this was a stunt, or if she had genuinely lost her mind. One of my cousins laughed nervously and muttered, "Well, at least it'll be a story for the grandkids," and I wanted to throw something at him. Cassie went completely dark. She blocked my number for a few days, which, honestly, was both infuriating and merciful. It gave me a chance to think, breathe, and try to make sense of what happened. I went back to the lodge to collect the remaining wedding stuff, my suit, the decorations, the rings, and it felt like walking through a ghost town. Tables were overturned in the chaos, flowers crushed underfoot, and the photographer had left a stack of blurry shots that looked more like crime scene photos than wedding memories. Then came the social media fallout. People we didn't even know started tagging me in posts, asking if the video of the runaway bride was real. Friends posted commentary like it was a reality show recap. Strangers weighed in on whether I was a controlling groom, or if she had finally grown a backbone. My phone buzzed constantly, and I eventually just had to turn it off because the constant notifications were like salt in a wound that was still raw. I started to realize something critical during those days. It wasn't just the runaway bride moment that shattered things. It was how quickly everyone turned it into a spectacle, a story to dissect, a lesson in judgment, and social media karma. My life, which had been intensely private until that moment, suddenly felt like it belonged to hundreds of strangers, each with an opinion and a hot take. And every time I tried to process my own feelings, the outside world screamed louder than my own heart, trying to tell me what I should feel or do. Cassie eventually reached out a week later. She apologized, not just for running, but for the chaos she caused, for humiliating me, for failing to communicate. And I listened, genuinely, because I realized that she wasn't apologizing for being human. She was apologizing for how our constructed expectations had clashed with the reality of who she was. But even as she spoke, even as I nodded and tried to be understanding, a part of me felt irreversibly changed. I had seen her panic at the altar, witnessed the raw, unfiltered collapse of someone I thought I knew. And no apology could erase that. Friends started asking if we were going to try again, if the wedding could be rescued, if we'd somehow turn this into a second chance. I couldn't answer, because I didn't know if we were the same people who had decided to marry 5 years ago. The girl I loved, and maybe still loved, was real, but she was also someone who had just confronted her own limits in the most dramatic way possible. And I had to confront mine too. Could I accept that someone I loved might never fit into the mold I had imagined? Could I forgive, even if I didn't forget? By the end of that week, I realized the answer wasn't simple. There were no neat resolutions, no cinematic closures, just the slow, grinding process of figuring out what love, commitment, and expectations really meant when confronted with raw, terrifying truth. And the more I thought about it, the more I understood, sometimes, life doesn't give you closure. Sometimes it just gives you a story that changes you forever. Part 5. Months have passed since that chaotic day, and I still replay it in my head, frame by frame, like a movie I can't stop watching. The wedding never happened. Cassie and I didn't get married. We're not together anymore, and while there's no dramatic fight or betrayal that ended it, just a slow, mutual drifting apart after the runaway moment, the memory of that day still hits me like a freight train. What I've realized, painfully, is that the wedding wasn't the problem. It was the pressure, the expectations, the need to perform a perfect version of ourselves for everyone else. And in that moment, Cassie's fear exposed the cracks I didn't want to see. I loved her, I trusted her, I believed in us, but watching her panic, watching the person I thought I knew completely unravel, made me realize that sometimes you cannot save someone from themselves. Sometimes the person you love most will be human in a way that hurts you deeply, and there's nothing you can do about it. I've spent months reflecting on what it means to commit to someone, and what it means to honor your own limits. I've learned that love isn't always about grand gestures or fairy tale weddings. It's about honesty, about knowing when to step back, and about recognizing that sometimes the bravest thing a person can do is say, "I'm not ready." It's also about acknowledging that this can devastate the people who love you, and there's no easy fix for that devastation. I've also learned something about myself. I thought I could handle anything. I thought I was prepared for disappointment and chaos. But watching someone you love run away at the altar stripped me bare in ways I didn't expect. It forced me to confront my own attachment to expectations, my need for control, and my assumptions about what, together, should look like. I'm stronger now, but it took the kind of heartbreak that makes you question everything to get here. People asked me if I regret trying to hold on that day, if I wish I'd let her go completely without chasing her. Honestly? I don't know. Maybe chasing her was selfish. Maybe it was love. Maybe it was both. I can't untangle it. All I know is that she's out of my life now, and I survived a wedding that exploded in my face, and somehow I'm still here, still trying to figure out what comes next. So here's my question, if anyone's still reading this and actually gets it, if the person you love most runs away from the life you built together, the person you thought you'd spend forever with, do you fight to pull them back, Or do you let them go and accept that some truths, about them, about you, about love, can't be fixed with vows, flowers, or a perfect Instagram post? Because I've learned the hard way that some moments are irreversible. Some truths are brutal. And some love doesn't fit neatly into a ceremony, no matter how much you want it to.